Dagda Bogastar Folcherov is Mission Skellybiog. Hello, and you're very welcome. I'm the little storyteller coming to you from today's Live at 5 session with the Irish Pagan School. And if you've seen the recordings before, you know what I'm going to say. It was amazing. It was absolutely fascinating and fantastic and brilliant. The topic today was actually revisiting a topic that we talked about very early on, and I'm really, really glad we did, because it was about consent in energy practice or prayer work. And we've covered so many different things from various perspectives. It was mentioned that, when we're considering prayer work or energy work, we need to kind of almost consider it as an act of medical. Like if you're going to pray for someone's healing, you know, you have to look at it from a medical care point of view. The first question is, do I have not the knowledge to provide this medical skill? After that, do I have the consent to provide the relative skill? You wouldn't, even doctors would not go in and just perform surgery on someone. You have to sign the fucking consent form, right? So there has to be some awareness of that. Now, we did talk about, life or death circumstances where, triage has to happen, or spiritual triage. But the awareness still has to be there that you're stepping over someone's personal sovereignty. You're deciding that your knowledge, your energy, your ability supersedes their position or their right to say no. Sometimes that's required, other times it's not. And so there has to be an awareness around the consent that's involved, for many reasons. Sometimes, as much as we may be a bleeding heart feeling their pain or their discomfort, maybe they need to go through that. Maybe part of their journey is to feel that discomfort so they can take that as an opportunity to grow. Or as was mentioned, sometimes it's not even about that. We see someone else upset and we want to care for them. We want to give them the tissues, give them the cuddle. Are we really looking after their well-being? Or are we just doing something to deal with our own discomfort of seeing someone else upset? All of this has been very, very fantastic to consider. And it really, really has been a great in-depth session, and I am always down for talking about consent because there needs to be more of it in our world. There needs to be more awareness, respect. That word has to become common. The awareness of those boundaries, the asking for consent has to become common, because far too many times it does so much damage when it's not. And we had a cached today. So it's a difficult one, so I'll ask you to bear with me on it, because I am going to talk about like parental relationships. We are going to touch on non-consensual energy. We are going to touch on non-consensual physical contact. So content warnings, heads up, just to make that awareness for you, for your own comfort. Now, the reason why we say kesht, there's an ancient bardic tradition in Ireland where a question or a kesht would be presented to a bard, and then the bard would be, respond with a story or respond with their thoughts, and that would then kick the performance of the dialogue. So that's what we mean by the word kesht. But I'm not just going to go into a story on this. I'm going to share some thoughts and perspectives, because the question today was, how does a person deal with non-consensual prayer or non-consensual physical contact from a family member? And it's a tricky one. It's a very, very tricky one. A member of our community has shared an experience where their parent came over to visit them in this COVID world, which is, a horror circumstance all in itself. But the parent does not believe that there is a global pandemic going on at the moment, or that the parent has specific, spiritual powers that can prevent COVID from affecting the member of our community. So the parent physically prayed, by my prayers to God, you shall not get COVID-19, and then laid hands on a member of our community. So not only was there non-consensual prayer, there was non-consensual physical contact as well, and there was a full-on violation of a person's respect for boundaries. And that is tough. Now, if we were to remove family member from that circumstance, you'd punch the person in the fucking face. If you're a non-violent person, you'd step the fuck away and tell them to back the hell off out of your personal space. Um, but when it comes to a family member, it's very, very difficult to deal with because of the cultural expectations that we have around family. If consent becomes so much more common, if consent becomes such a fundamental baseline of respect in our society, then that wouldn't be an issue. I grew up in the 80s in Ireland, where whenever I went to visit granny or granddad, well, you have to give your granny a kiss before you're going. I didn't want to kiss my granny. Why would I have to give you have to give your granddad a hug. My granddad was a prick. He was absolutely a prick. He 100% horror stories, alcoholic, the worst. Um, I wouldn't want to hug him, but I felt socially obliged by my family to sacrifice my own personal sovereignty to physically contact with another person just because they were my granddad. Does that sound wrong? If we say it in that light, if we break down the interactions, we need to be able to define where it is. And so now we're growing up, we're being more aware. And as we always say in these Live at Fives, as Maya Angelou would say, when you know better, do better. We now know that no child should be forced to physically contact with someone else. I was a huggy kid for the majority of my relationships. If I didn't want to hug you, that's because there was something wrong with you for my safety. But we shouldn't be forcing our children to be in physical contact with people they're not supposed to be in contact with. And that's where we grow up. And that's where the family relationship continues, where, children become adults, they have children, and then those children are treated to the exact same programming that the parents were treated to. And then we get this cycle where, it becomes very difficult to break. Turning around and calling my father a racist to his face was difficult to do, but I had to fucking do it. Turning around to my mom and saying, listen, mom, I love you, but I'm not down for your prayers right now, because my mom is hardcore Catholic. I will treat you with respect. I call my mom Carmel. I call my dad Jack, because they are those people as well as being the people who brought me into this world. I was very fortunate, though. I managed to get the respect for being John O'Sullivan. I am their son, but I am also me. And that is something that I really hope we can move more towards in time. So for the question that was presented to us, the dialogue needs to be along that line, irrespective of the well wishes or the well-meaning intent, because that's what it is. A lot of our parents may have the best wishes in their heart or in their head for us. They want good things for us, but not all of them do. And sometimes they think they know better, because for the majority of their life, we weren't fully mature, realized individuals. And so we were relying on their judgment. We were relying on their decisions, their discipline, their security. But comes an age, everyone has to turn around and say, listen, I love you, but I'm me. I got to do my life. I'm me. You need to respect me for who I am. And that's tough. That leads to distance in relationships, which I experience myself as well. But if both people still value the relationship, it can be figured out. It can be worked out. But there has to be boundaries. There has to be an awareness of consent, because consent is the edge of your personal sovereignty. And I mean that like being fully empowered in who you are, being fully responsible in owning who you are. And someone who does not respect your boundaries is not just disrespecting a choice you've made, they are disrespecting you, all of you. It's easier when it's not family. It's easier when a stranger is the person, who tries to shake your hand, and then you're like, sorry, not today. And then they overstep and kind of reach out and touch it just to prove that they can. You can tell them to fuck off, or you can never see them again. But it's hard when it's family, because family are supposed to be the people who love you most. Family is supposed to be the people who have your back, who have your best interests at heart. Thing is, if they don't know you, if they don't embrace or accept who and how you are as separate from them, it's tricky. I will say that I'm very emotionally touched by this and hurt by this. I've said it in all of our sessions. If your dad doesn't love you, I'm your dad now. Drink your water, do your homework, eat 3 square meals away, and make sure you get enough sleep at night. Be all that you can be for you, and I will always be proud of you. Unfortunately, that's not always the same. That's not always the relationship that people have with their parents. But it has to start from a baseline of respect. And to the member of the community who asked the question, the way to deal with that is to stand your ground. Because it's your life. It's your story. Every page of your existence is written by your thoughts, your feelings, your deeds, and will always be till the back cover is closed and that book is put on the awesome bookshelf that has been your soul journey and your soul life. And if someone wants to be part of that story, they need to respect that it's your story. So I would say, stand your ground. Yeah. Because this is something that none of us should ever give ground on. Our right to choose who we are. Our right to say what is right for us. Our right to say no. So start with that. Stand your ground. Love yourself enough to say, you are my parent. You are my sibling. You are my whatever. I love you, but you can be over there now. And until you respect me where I am, you can stay over there. I'll send you a message at Christmas. I'll send you a message at your birthday. If we want to have more than that, then we need to both of us find that middle ground where we can respect each other as people and not just be, the child that you raised. So I really hope that helps. And I think keep going. Anyone who's kind of hearing this, anyone who's kind of seeing this message, love yourself enough. It's tough. As a guy who struggles with self-esteem issues and depression, and all of my community here now know the rule. If John says something self-deprecating, every single one of them make sure that John says 3 nice things about John. And that makes me very uncomfortable. So I don't say self-deprecating things anymore. Because I'm learning to love me. So love yourself enough. Turn up for yourself first. And then you will be able to be as beautifully empowered as you can for the rest of the world, for the rest of your life. So thank you very much for being here. Gaurav Mahagas. Deep breath. As Dagda rules would say, feel your feelings. And Slán. Goodbye.